was a dark and stormy night, nor'easter rolling in. It's a long 12 hours, the power's out again. I pray for inner strength and that we don't lose no lives. Just another day in the first responders' eyes. Half a cup of coffee's gone, the first run comes in. A car slid off the road, there's a family trapped within. My heart beats like a hammer, I can barely catch my breath. I'm thinking the worst and hoping for the best. Yeah, we ain't superheroes, we're just ordinary people trying to make a difference, and the first on every scene. It's a heavy, heavy burden to carry all this burden when you can't unsee the things you've seen. It keeps going on when those sirens are gone.
Hey, welcome to the award-winning Mad Radio Show with John and Sam. We are out about to heal our heroes in the part 2 segment of Vicarious Trauma and what to do after service. Hey, how you doing, Sam?
Doing great tonight, John. Hey, we've defrosted.
Thank God.
Yeah, we are coming off. It's been an awesome time coming off a really successful workshop back out in East Texas, where we ended up running into some more severe weather, melted from an ice storm, and it's just been one thing after the next from there. But our mission never stops, and we're 110% committed. And we're going to start off by sharing a story of why we do what we do, because it's really about all of you. Whether you are retired, whether you are still on the job, you are not alone. You are surrounded by a safety net, if you will, your safety bubble, where all you have to do is reach out, whether it's through the show here or a badge of honor, which we'll talk about at the end and how you can do that. You don't have to go through this alone. And we've got 29 officers who have died by suicide since the beginning of the year. And that doesn't sound like a lot. Now, let me just say it's 29 that have been reported, because we still know that there are those, those departments that don't want to wear that as kind of like a black eye to them. What we'd like to say to you is, please report it for what it is. You can step up as the chief and do the right thing, declare it a line of duty death. But for the things that we can't unsee, most of us wouldn't be even contemplating suicide.
When you say 29, when we talk about those, like when you say those are reported, there are many more, just like in the veteran community, that officers that are retired, that is so underreported, if reported at all, that have retired and have been battling. And, we bring that up a lot with life after retirement, and how our identity is sometimes falters, and we lose our way because we've been on the job for so long. That's all we know. So a lot of 29 is a very low number compared to probably nationwide is probably almost double when we start talking about retired law enforcement as well.
Yeah, for sure. And we're gonna talk about that with our guests tonight. But John, do you wanna just tell everybody how really easy it is to get the help that you so deserve?
Sam, and that's, helping that one person really makes a difference, and it makes the show so well worth it, because, a person gave us a shout who knew about the show. He was on the show a while ago. Inboxed me with a message, said, "Hey, listen, I need some help, man. I'm not in crisis, but you know what? I can use some help and some awareness." And I said, "Sure, man." I gave him a call. We spoke for a while, and like I said, I don't have a PhD on the end of my name, but I've been through a lot of stuff that I think I'm educated enough to be able to give a pretty good clinical diagnosis. So we spoke for a little over an hour, and it was a great conversation. We identified a lot of issues that we have seen in other people that he thought he was alone. And exactly what we say is you're never alone, because he felt like he goes, "I don't know why I feel this way. I feel like I'm out of sorts." And I'm like, "Brother, that's a lot of us." And it turned out he was overwhelmed, a lot of stuff, a lot of pressure from the job. So one of our clinicians that we deal with all the time, I called her up.
Yeah,
and I
true
said,
partner.
Hey,
Yep.
Yep. And I said, "Hey, listen," I said, "Can you maybe see this guy for a couple of sessions, talk to him, see what he's all about? He's looking for some a little bit more guidance." And once again, man, you know what? I love our partners. Yes. What do you need? When do you need it? Here's my number. So she gave me her number. I forwarded it over to the person, and hopefully everything will work out well. And the door is always open on Mad Radio. So you can you can inbox us on the Mad Radio page. You can inbox us personally. You can say, "Hey, listen, I'm an officer in California. I'm an officer in New York. Hey, listen, I just need someone to talk to. Can you maybe direct me someplace? Can you help me find a resource? I'm not getting what I need out of my department, or I need a little guidance." That's what we're here for. That's what this show is all about. That's why we do it. We're healing our heroes, and if we don't step up and be part of what we preach, you know what? Then we're going to have a lot more than the 29 suicides. So
yeah. So this is you see, I put the banner up at badgeofhonor.com. Let's just do this at the beginning of the show. If you know that you have recognized that things are out of sorts, you just don't feel like yourself, log on to a badgeofhonor.com, scroll down. We have vetted resources, keyword vetted, because you just heard when we pick up the phone, the outcome of that. Vetted resources. You can click on their logo and get direct contact information. Tell them, Sam and John sent you. Or like John said, you can reach out directly to us through the website. Our phone numbers are on there. And we will help you out no matter where you are. So, I think we should, are you ready to make the transition? Because we're talking right.
But one thing I just want to touch on the vetted aspect again.
Yeah. Vetted.
The vetted aspect, because, when as law enforcement, jumping from couch to couch to try to find somebody that fits our needs, right, could become very frustrating, and we can end up, blowing the whole mental health thing out the window and giving up. But our vetted resources have proven track records with first responders. They know they are there for you. So, it's, even though maybe the couch may not be right for you to sit and talk with somebody, but they're going to be the best in their field to analyze and to help you get through whatever you're battling with. So you won't have to go look into the yellow pages or Google a therapist and go, "Hey, I wonder how good they are." We've vetted them. We've made sure that they had a proven track records with other first responders. That's when we take them on. So vetted is very, very important.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes that vetting process is through our spouse, right? That our spouse maybe has been through something. Hey, how'd you get through XYZ? Well, we are bringing back on a couple that has made a difference for each other. and we're going to continue the conversation, which we started back on January 19th. Let's get Todd and Lisa back on here. Hey, guys.
Welcome back, guys.
Hi.
So if you missed the first show with Todd and Lisa, you can go onto our YouTube page. That's at Mad Radio Texas, all spelled out, and look for them on January 19th. And we're gonna pick up the conversation. Todd served our country. He's in the feds. He has seen a lot. He has done a lot. I'm not going to get too specific on that. He trains currently at a very high level in, I'll say, communities that will be there when you call them. And sometimes if they're specifically requested, the people on the other end are going to have a very bad day. Is that a good way to sum it up, Todd?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. Without giving too much away. And Lisa has been there every step of the way while Todd was on the job, and while Todd, your retirement, and the things that you all navigated. We touched on the drinking aspect, which we talked about that at our workshops with law enforcement in particular. It also affects the veteran community, is that need and want to find a place, an escape, so that we don't have to deal with the things going on up here, so we don't have to have the conversations, everything that we don't have to do, the tough stuff. We look to find that escape. And I just want to let everybody know that the comment stream is open. Hey, Judy, thanks for joining us. So at any point, if you have a question for Todd and Lisa or a comment, go ahead and you can post it, and we'll make sure to get that answered. So Todd and Lisa, thank you so much for coming back on the show. And like I said, just being willing to talk, because we covered a lot on the show last time. There was so much more really to dive into in the way that you guys helped each other. And so you have kids, by the way. So everybody watching, there's kids aspect, watching dad this whole time, and having mom to kind of lean on. I want to ask you guys to start off is, again, a big reminder. Both of these guys were involved in the Murrah federal building, the Oklahoma City bombing, the Murrah building. And it affected you in different ways. Lisa, can you just remind folks kind of like where you were, and then Todd, your story on that?
Well, as far as where I was due to be into the office by 9 o'clock that morning, and I was running late.
Which she never does.
Which is true. I'm always early. And our 3-year-old daughter at the time, we had the night before picked out her outfit for the day, and agreed on it. You know how that goes with little kids and stuff. So the morning of, she was throwing a tantrum and did not want to wear the outfit that we had agreed on that she would wear. And it was a whole drama session with her that morning. And I called the credit union that I worked for, and it was about 10 minutes till 9. And I told them that I was running late and that I would be there as soon as I could. And then it seemed like not long after I hung up and I had started loading up the car, I'd put our daughter into her car seat in the car, and the diaper bag and everything with snacks and all that kind of stuff, and went back into the house because I'd forgotten something, and the phone started ringing. And Well, right before that, I heard this boom, and I looked up outside to see. I thought it was a plane crash, and couldn't see anything. And then the phone started ringing, and it was Todd's dad asking me where he was. And he was on assignment in Tennessee at the time. And so I told his dad that he wasn't there and where he was. And he said, "Oh, good." And I said, "Why?" And he told me about the Murrah building, that there was an explosion. And I'm sorry, this is hard.
No,
No, that's okay.
I said, "You're wrong. I can't be." And he said, "Well, they think it may be a gas explosion. They don't really know." And I said, "No, no, no." And he said, "Lisa, turn on the TV." And I remember turning on the TV and seeing the images. And then all I remember after that was dropping the phone and dropping to my knees. And I don't remember anything for the next few hours. I don't even know how our daughter got out of the car seat. I don't know what transpired over those few hours.
Now, the credit union that you worked at was inside the building.
Yes,
correct?
Inside the building, third floor.
How close, since you were able to hear the explosion and see the smoke, how close did you live to where the building was?
About 13 miles.
About 13 miles. Thank you for sharing that, by the way. I know it never gets easy. But for, the only thing I could say is God had his hand on you that day. He had his hand on your daughter that day for a reason. And maybe it was to get Todd through whatever he needed to get through, because you've built up such resiliency and such strength that you have really been able to heal others. And, things happen for a reason. With 9/11, there were so many people, and you heard so many stories about people getting stuck on the train, getting late to work. A good buddy of mine, firefighter, he switched tours with somebody that day, and that whole company was lost, and his best friend who switched shifts with him was lost. And believe it or not, it was because his daughter had an appointment at school that he had to do. And you see all these stories, and it was the child that either made the person late or had something to do. And God acts in mysterious ways sometimes through children to bring us to a point where we are today. So I do really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. And so, Todd, you're in Tennessee.
I was in Jackson on a special assignment, and that morning, I remember I was on the telephone with my cousin because he had just been notified that he had just been hired on, with the agency I was with, and he was asking me what to expect, what basic training was like, and blah blah blah. And then I had one of the other marshals, deputies, call me out in the office, and he says, "Hey, you got a urgent call on the other line. You need to pick up on it." So I picked it up and was told that the Murrah building just got blown up. And I went, "What? What are you talking about?" And finally he said, "Just go find a television." And so I'm in Jackson, Tennessee, small town, trying to find in a federal building, trying to find an office with a television. And there was not a television in the office where I was at. I went running upstairs, no TV, went running downstairs to the basement, and it was a congressman's office. I remember that. I remember vividly, with the door propped open, they had a television up on a stand, and I could see the building, half the building gone. And I immediately running back upstairs, trying to call Lisa, tried to call the house. There was no answer. And then I got on a phone call and tried to call everybody that I worked with. I kept a roster list of everybody. And that was back in the days when we had the old flip phone. Mm-hmm. So I started calling everybody, and no answer until I got to one particular guy that I worked with. And I asked him, I said, "What is going on?" And he says, I don't know, but he says, you get on a plane and get home immediately. So I did. I couldn't get on a plane until the very next morning. And so the very next morning, and I never had contact with Lisa the whole time. So the whole time I thought I would lost her. I thought she was dead. And so I had no contact with her. The telephone lines had been down. You know, Oklahoma City at that time, the phone lines were not real good. And then trying to call in, couldn't get through. And when I got home that next day, next morning, walked into the house not knowing what to expect, and I saw her standing there. And of course, you know, we shed a lot of tears. And then I changed clothes and went downtown immediately. And then so we after that, it was kind of a blur.
He went immediately to search and rescue, and I went immediately to an emergency board meeting at our credit union and to find ways of recovering for our credit union and to find out who all was missing from our agency. So we both went into that mode immediately the day after.
Yeah.
And Todd, how long had you been on the job when this happened?
Well, I had local experience time before. I had local PD time before, 6.5 years before there.
Okay.
And then when this happened with the feds, I had a little over 3 years on.
Okay, so almost a decade. So what the reason I wanted to set that up for everybody that's listening is exactly the way Lisa described it. You guys, you had your moment. You couldn't reach her, you know, trauma. Okay. Because Lisa, it was there affectionately. She was there because her office is there, even though she wasn't present. And Todd, you're away. You can't reach her. So, you know, your mind starts racing. You finally get to see each other, realize you guys are together in one piece, still alive. And then you do exactly what you've been doing for a decade. You go to work. Okay.
Immediately.
So let's take a pause right there, because for a non-first responder family, this is not how a non-first responder family's brain works. Okay. It is huddle, be together. We're not leaving the house. Oh my God, do we need to lock the doors? And you're fixated on the TV. First responder families are, oh my God, I love you. Thank God you're still alive. I got to go to work.
We got a mission to do.
I gotta save people. There's things to do. A building just blew up. This is my city. This is where we live. I got to do my job.
Absolutely.
And so Lisa's this way, Todd, you're this way handling the business. And we all know from being, you know, John and I 9/11, that this is not a couple of hour thing. Oh, I'll see you, you know, when I get off. Okay. This is days, weeks, months. You've got in the investigation, it's ongoing. I mean, it turns into well over a year. And this entire time, it's what we need to do for our community, for our jobs, instead of what we need to do for us. Okay, this is not a criticism. This is just a first responder family response, because we're trained this way.
Yeah.
Right?
And you know what?
Yeah.
There was a point I was listening to a friend of mine has he's prior military, has a coffee company now. And I was listening to a podcast, and the guy he was talking to on his podcast, he made a very good point. And when he talked about first responders, and I appreciate the fact that he brought this out, but first responders are in combat every day. Mm-hmm. I mean, that deployment does not end until you retire. And this is the one thing I will say, and I'm not taking anything away from the guys in the military, because my dad's retired military. He's 100% disabled vet. But with law enforcement, I mean, it's day in, day out until you retire. where you're on that deployment or you're on that mission or you have something to do, instead of going on deployment where you're gone for, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, whatever. There's an end to it. And you get to come home. But with law enforcement, it's a little different because it's every day until you retire.
But let me just stop you right there, Todd, because we bring this up in our workshops a lot. It doesn't stop after you retire.
Oh, no. Matter of fact, and I think we brought this up last month whenever we were talking, or actually in January. When you retire, you have this downtime, and now all of a sudden, all of these things that you went through for however many years that you were on the job, it all comes back to the surface. And so now you're trying to figure out, am I going crazy? Because now all these things are coming through your mind.
But also on that, when I talk about it doesn't stop after you really never retire, because even if you retire after 20 or 30 years, right? If you're in the Army, right? You retire, you do your 4 years or 6 years or 8 years. Now you're the family man, right? But cops are different. Tell me you don't. Every time you walk out the door, you're not scanning your block. Every time you go to a grocery store, you're not scanning the grocery store and evaluating everybody. You go to a movie theater, you go to a restaurant, you go to try to enjoy your life. But you know what? It's been so into us for 10, 20, 30 years that we don't know any other way. So we are really, in essential, still working. Because even as a retired cop, if something happens at a grocery store, you're taking action. You're jumping in, right? You're carrying your gun, right?
Oh yes.
I knew cops in New York, and this was crazy. They used to make canisters, right? Little canister safes that cops would take to the beach with them. So they would put it under there. They would put the canister into the sand. This way they could put their firearm in the canister and they would cover it with their blanket. And I used to say, why are you taking your gun to the beach?
You never know.
To sit down and relax and enjoy. But we go into that hypervigilant state and we can't get out of it.
We do. And I think when you're in certain situations throughout your career, those things what they do is they're embedded in your brain. You can't erase those things. It's like a computer. Right. You think you can erase it? You're not going to erase it. It's always there.
There's no delete button that permanently, it's always recoverable. Yeah.
Unless you're a Clinton, you can get all those emails deleted.
But hey, I think they even found. I think they even found those too. So, so here you guys are. You're going through the motions, and it's just it's another trauma stacked on the ones that you've already experienced, and so how. At what point did you guys come together to discuss what you guys have been doing, like your experiences through the next bunch of weeks, months? When did you finally sit down together and kind of be like, check in? Because we have kids that are involved in this too.
To be perfectly honest, I don't think we really did for several years. No. When we transferred out of the Oklahoma City area about 4 years after the fact, that's when we first really started dealing with the trauma from that event for both of us. Because we were still, as long as we were living there in the Oklahoma City area, we were reliving it every single day and always still rebuilding in some way and listening to everybody else's stories, always trying to comfort somebody else. Until we moved 4 years later to the Dallas area and got away from it, that's when it all started just really piling onto us and started coming out, and we would talk about it. And
even then we didn't talk a whole lot about it.
No.
I I was going to ask you, how did those conversations begin? Because a lot of people don't know how to start those conversations. Do you remember?
There's a lot I don't remember, but I do remember just talking about, the craziest thing that, like, I would go through that day, how something would just hit me throughout the day. Yeah. And then when 9/11 happened, just a few years after we moved to Dallas, I mean, that really opened up a lot of buried wounds.
I think there's a lot of, I say a lot, there are some trigger points, as you guys both know. There are trigger points or certain things that will start your mind up to go back to that period. And that's typically whenever the conversations would come up, and the conversations really didn't last that long. And I don't know, even at that point, that we really didn't deal with any of this stuff. And I don't think that we dealt with anything, and nor did we deal with it properly until after I retired, because we really didn't know how to deal with it.
Right.
Right. Well, we talked on the last show, you guys are people of faith. Lisa, you talk about, the specific conversation you're having as you're leaning over Todd. Did you, even though you didn't really talk, did you just rely on your faith back then to just, no matter what, that's what you turned to, and it didn't matter what was going to happen?
Yes. That was the only thing that I turned to every time that we had difficulty and was experiencing anything. I always turned to the Lord. That's where I found the comfort and the strength and wisdom and how to get through it. And I think that's what sustained me as a spouse. And it also helped. There were so many times throughout his career that I would be awakened in the middle of the night, and all I would know is that I was supposed to pray right then. And so I would kneel down beside the bed and start praying for him, because I just knew he was in danger. And it would turn out when he got home, he would tell me about a specific operation that he was on that kind of went south, and he was in the line of fire, and the Lord instructed me to pray for him at that very moment. And those are things I can't explain other than just, I praise God for it, for his gifts of grace and giving me that wisdom to do that, to pray for him.
Yeah.
John and I have talked about this a lot, and a lot of folks in the workshop will share with us that it was, they would grow up in the church or whatever their faith was, and then these traumas just built to a point where they turned to prayer, but they felt like they weren't getting an answer. Mm-hmm. So they kind of pushed it away. Right. Mm-hmm. They figured that faith is not the answer. Me being one of them, that I will say it right out here on the show. That is what happened to me after 9/11, when nothing made sense, and I'm talking to God and he's not answering me back. I just wasn't listening. That you learn that afterwards, right? Yeah. Because this is so, it's like screaming. Right. Yeah. So you can't hear anything else except for what's going on in your head, and it's all negative, and what's wrong with you, and why can't you snap out of it? And it's not till you find that ability to be present in the moment, but realize that there is something bigger than you, and you just need to shush. Yeah. And learn how to be still and be quiet to hear again.
That's true.
And your journey's your journey. Everybody has their experience with that. Yes. And so I applaud you, because you, Lisa, were so grounded and 100% knew that all of this bad stuff had happened. Oklahoma City then 9/11, Todd's out on ops, and the number one thing you knew concretely, even though the trauma was happening to you at the same time, is that no matter what, your faith was your guidepost. And I think it's such an important message because, you know, John, honestly, we don't talk about that enough. And it is something that has kept you, I don't know other word to say, maybe you can explain it better, in a place of understanding and healing for each other, to the point where you guys, you know, didn't feel it was necessary to formally sit on a couch or do, you know, a therapy together or individually. Do I have that right? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, and I will say that there was I used to teach and still teach on some things. One of those areas I used to teach in and still teach in is defensive tactics, and fighting and shooting. So I used to and still teach people how to shoot, how to fight. One of the things that was brought out, and the point is, one must have their faith. And if one does not have their faith in something, then what are they going to put it in? So, you know, and the other thing is, we need to understand, of course, you understand now, when we do pray to God, he answers those prayers, but it's on his time. It's not on our time. Because we always expect an immediate answer.
Right.
And it's not going to happen that way. It just don't work that way. And he doesn't work that way. But I think the very most important part of that is just having that understanding is you know, that faith. And whenever a person goes out on some type of an operation or some type of assignment or detail or TDY or whatever, what's their faith in? Is it in themselves or is it in God?
Well, let me ask something, Todd. And Sam brought it up. Have you ever lost faith?
How much time do we have on this program?
Well, here's you touch on a big thing, because like we say, we're very let's pray to God. Oh, he didn't do anything, I lose faith. Or a tragedy happens. How could God let that happen? There is no God, I'm losing faith. But how do you keep your strength to renew your faith in God and to keep those prayers? Because obviously it works.
Well, I won't go into a sermon, I promise. But I will tell you that you know, somebody who has that faith, who does believe, you know, and when then we decide, or something happens to us, like you said, a traumatic event or a traumatic experience that goes in, and I can speak from personal experience. Losing that faith, or I always call it veering off that path, which is what I did. I veered off that path, way off that path. You know, and it was ugly, but you know, that's that point where God's kind of like, okay, go on, see how this works out for you. I mean, let me know how it works out for you.
And you're like, God, hold my beer.
Yeah. It's kind of like, okay, just wait and see how this works. Because it ain't gonna work out for you. Promise you. And when you get to that point, at that lowest of the low, in that valley, that you just at that point where you want to, you know, or I can speak from experience. You don't have any reason to live, or you think you don't have any reason to live, and you want to just, I'm done. You know, I'm done. If I want to start my own pistol or whatever. You know, I can't say that the thoughts were never there, because obviously they were. But a lot of that is not knowing how to deal with that stress and how to deal with that that traumatic event, how to discuss things, because in law enforcement, what do? We typically shut down. Everybody is an enemy, and I'm going to do my own thing, and that's where we find ourselves in trouble 99.9% of the times when we do that, when in fact we really should be reaching out to somebody to speak to them. Our spouse is the best person to talk to, somebody who's there, somebody who knows you. And that's the point where a lot of people, I think, miss out on, because then they'll go out and look for other, whether it's a friend or whoever to speak to, thinking that they know them better. No, they don't. Nobody knows you better than your own spouse. So, I mean,
and you guys have been through the trauma and have, like I said, shared so much. It's not like, first responder families serve just like military families.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It is a switch that is not easily flipped off. When you walk in the door, that's when you need to have, John and I talk about all the time, the routine, the decompression time, whether it's going to the gym and then going home, or hey, when I get home, it's been a tough day. I need like 10 minutes. Can you take the kids and just you have that mode of communication. And Todd, you're exactly right. It's like, hey, I'm the first responder. I got to figure out a way to deal with this, because I figure out a way to deal with everything on every day. That's what we do, right? We fix.
Yeah.
When all of our spouses at home, they want to help us fix, but if you don't keep those doors open and talk right from the beginning, oftentimes the door, it just is never open. And speaking of doors, Todd, when you were talking about, God saying, oh, okay, you go down that path and you see the way that you like it. It's the way that it was explained a little bit, or how I choose to see it, is that there will always be a seat for us at his table, but he's not going to be the one to say, don't go experience that. Go experience that. Here's your seat. It's always going to be here, because all my children have a seat at my table, right?
Well,
and sometimes we just gotta go there, and like you said, a lot of us, start our. I've never heard that before. Pistol, and John, you have your moment of being spoken to. I mean, shit, God sent my dog. It is the way it is, and at that point, it's up to us to kind of make a decision.
Yeah.
To either stick with it and figure it out, or don't.
We have, we've got a very good, and not to, go down that path unless you want to, but I mean, we have a very good instruction book on how to live our lives, and that's that's through God's word. But a lot of people don't want to listen to it. They're like you were saying, well, I don't believe in that. I don't believe, why would things bad happen? Why would he allow things? We don't know.
Right.
There's a purpose and a reason for everything.
See, when you just say, I have faith. I'm not very I'm not very church going, but I do have faith, and it's because of a lot of things that happen. And I look at you two, and Sam has probably heard me say this many times, is that paths cross for a reason.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
God puts people in our lives for a specific reason, be it in the beginning of our life, during the middle, or at the end. Yeah. For a reason. We meet with people. Me and Sam were at 9/11 together, right? Didn't know each other. Who would have thought that almost 8 years later we would meet in Texas? Who would have thought, right? I mean, Texas is a big place, right?
Yeah.
Hook up to the way we did to begin doing our broadcast and begin healing our heroes. With you and Lisa, you lost faith and you were ready to, start your gun. right? But Lisa never lost that faith.
Yeah.
So she was placed beside you for a reason.
Well, yeah.
When you get really deep, it can get so deep. When you look at things and go, man, there's got to be a higher power. There's got to be, because these stories are not unique.
Yeah.
Every first responder has one, or two, or three.
Yeah.
And when someone says, I don't believe, or doesn't want to take the time to read about something, that's because they're scared of it, or they don't understand it. And the power that's above, and the power that, whatever power it is.
We have one of the, obviously I won't mention any names, but one of our members of the church that we go to, that we have, one of the members who was in the military and he was heavily involved in drinking and did a lot of things. And he was at that point with the PTSD and stuff like that. And the first time that he came back, because he had left the church for a number of years, and when he came back, we were there. And then so he and I start sitting down, we're talking about certain things, and we shared a lot of things, a lot of things in common.
This is right after he was called as a pastor of our church.
Yeah, and he has since come back and he's joined the church. And but the opportunity to sit down and talk with him and to share with him and to let him know, brother, you're not alone, because I've been there. I understand completely where you're at. I understand about the alcohol and the alcoholism. I understand about the suicidal thoughts. I understand about all of that stuff. And we shared a lot of tears too.
Take your time.
I appreciate that, and love him dearly. I'll put it that way.
He was placed. You connected for a reason.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
for a reason.
Well, and that goes back to like what you were saying. There's certain people that God places in our life, for one reason or another. I think before, I've got a good friend of mine who's retired in my PD, and he and I have had many discussions, and I call him my brother from another mother. So love him to death, good guy. And to this day, if we were to throw on our kit and have to go hit some door, I'd go through that man.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to talk about the kids here, because again, here you are, little kids, Oklahoma City bombing, you guys end up moving.
Yeah.
9/11 happens, reminder, you're thrown right back into all of what you all went through. Todd, you've been on the job for a long time now. How are the kids, Lisa, how are you keeping everybody moving in the direction which is forward? Watching Todd kind of, like he says, step off the path. And before, stepping off the path a little bit, before retirement, and then when retirement hit, boom. Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to say that was able to help recognize certain things in our daughters, and was there for them as I should have been as a mother. And the truth of it is that I wasn't, and I didn't as much as I should have. After we moved to Texas, I did, right after 9/11, I went back to work and with the county government, and there were warning signs with our children. Again, previously, before in Oklahoma City, they had certain health issues, childhood ulcers, and things of that nature. And then after we moved to Dallas, they were getting close to preteen age, and other things started coming in, such as eating disorders and things like that. We started noticing in our children, and notice them and try to counsel them. But I don't know that we did a very good job of it. And then later on, before he retired, I'd say it was several years before you retired, our youngest daughter, this is really hard to say. She had just graduated high school, and on Father's Day, of all days, decided that she wanted us to know that she was moving out and that she was living a homosexual lifestyle. And so she was moving in with her girlfriend. And it was the hardest day of our life. And about a week prior to that, I'd had a dream that the Lord had shown me that we were going to have issues with her and that we would just have to let her go for a while. And that it would be a long while. And but that she would come back.
She did.
And it was about 4 or 5 years later, she finally, the Lord revealed himself to her and her lifestyle. And she called crying one night and with a very repentant heart and said, I know that I'm not living right. And she, since then, has turned her whole life around. But I would love to sit here and say that we did all the right things, but we didn't. We experienced everything else that every other family, especially first responder families, live through. And Todd, being the very stern man that he is in his career, I was also like that. I was raised that way myself. My dad was partly Norwegian, and he had a very strong character about him, and I was raised that way. And so we both were very tough on our girls. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a whole lot of room for anything else. And
well, you know what they say? They say that what is it? Cops' kids and preachers' kids are typically the worst ones. So.
Yeah, but this goes back to what you just said, Todd. You know, we all got to walk a path sometimes.
We do,
right?
We do. Yeah.
Sometimes we may walk it for a year. Sometimes we may walk it for 4 or 5 years. But you know, we got to find our way.
Yeah.
And we got to find a way that's right for us. So it's not that you guys did anything wrong. It's not that you were bad parents or you didn't do it right. That's what needed to be done to get her to where she is today.
You know, and I think being in law enforcement, you see the bad in everything. You're around the bad. I mean, the worst of the worst. You're around it. You're around people who've been involved in shootings, you know, whether it's rape or murder or robberies or carjackings or whatever. I mean, you are literally around the worst of the worst. And then you get called to solve other people's problems. And then when you come home, you're trying to solve your own problems at home. And it doesn't always work well.
Well, you know why it doesn't work well is because we treat our family like perps.
Yes. Yeah. That's true.
That's the truth.
Right? We treat our family like perps. You know, when the kid on the corner with the gun or the drugs, when we bow up to him and tell him to get off the corner or we're gonna lock you up, we have to perceive strength. We have to show strength and dominance over that person because that's a safety issue, right?
Yes.
When we do that to our own families, right, we're doing damage.
Yeah.
We have to put on more of kid gloves.
Yes.
And approach those issues a little differently when it's someone we love.
Yes.
When it's
turn the switch off.
Yeah. And that's a difficult thing to do.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
It's extremely difficult to turn that switch off. And I think that's the part that the general populace doesn't understand. Those in especially law enforcement, when you go home at the end of your shift or the end of your operation or the end of your assignment or whatever, how do you turn the switch off? It doesn't work. So now you're trying to decompress from all of the things that you saw or did or were involved in. And in trying to decompress that, you're trying to figure things out in your own mind and go, wait a second. And then when your kids mouth off and say something smart aleck to you, then you, like you said, you treat them like a perp. It's kind of like laying the law down to them.
You go right back to what you know and live every day. It's like, wait, not in my house, right?
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons too, and I don't know if it was if it was in your department or Sam in your department, but I know in New York, and he just reinforced the fact the other day on TV, like previous mayors and commissioners and everybody else, to turn that light switch off or to turn that switch off and decompress. You're a cop 24 hours a day. That's coming from our commanders and our chiefs. You're a cop 24 hours a day. Whoa. Then pay me 24 hours a day, my friend, because I'm only a cop for 8 hours or 12 hours a day.
Okay, well, then what about this?
It's the culture that they breed it into a lot of these cops.
Yes. Well, what happens when you're home? Let's say you do your shift or your time or whatever, and all of a sudden there's a fight that breaks out outside in the street next door or wherever. Are you going to just sit back and do nothing? No, you're a cop.
Right.
That's what you're trained to do. Your job is to go intervene and to stop this in the event that somebody doesn't get killed,
right, or
doesn't hurt somebody. So you can't just, I'm not going to go. You can't just do that.
Yeah, just for the record, we were 24/7, 365, and you were reminded of that. But that is true. We live by our pager.
Yes,
it was not. You know, if you weren't on a case, protection. That was just what you accepted as part of the job. I will say, because the job was a little bit different. You know, not dealing with, I'm not pulling people. I'm not doing traffic stops.
Right.
I'm not investigating the rape or a murder. So a little bit different, but
the same.
That always on mentality. And after 9/11, it was even harder to switch anything off. I would say, after trauma.
Yeah.
Todd, you've spoken about this before. After a tough call, after seeing things that most public just doesn't experience, you don't turn that off. That stays with you. It's part of you because your brain has taken 85 billion pictures of it. If it's not up close and personal, front and center, and you're not having a nightmare, it's in your subconscious, and you never know when it's, it could be in the cereal aisle. You see somebody that looks like a murder victim. It's the weirdest stuff, right?
Well, what about, here's something else too. I mean, whenever you're involved, it's one thing as far as traffic stop, because you never know who you're going to stop. I mean, that can happen at the split second and the split moment. And I've had that happen before. But even when you're on the investigative side, because 95+% of the cases that I was involved in, it was dope and guns. And it all involved violent crime. And so I was involved in helping out with murder investigations. I was involved in helping out with drug investigations, because you help out with these people, and that's what your job to do, is to help out your local counterparts and to help them. So you're constantly, even when you go home, you're going through your mind. Did I do this? Did I do that? Okay, this is what needs to be done. You're constantly thinking and what else needs to be done. And so you can't shut that brain off.
Yeah. Well, John, that's why we do what we do. We teach how to create those transition pieces, how to leave yourself as first responder at the office so that you can be present for your family, for those who need you. Sorry, silencing my phone here. And so it does become the ability to have a family unit. And Todd, it took you a long time. And yes, you're still doing training. We never fully get out of it, so to speak. There's always pieces of us still operating. But when you found the church, you were called to be a pastor. You made some significant shifts after, you're on the floor, Lisa's, we talked about this the last show, Lisa's praying over you, and the big man upstairs said, "Hey son, you're getting your shit together right now."
Oh yeah, and he did. Yeah, I didn't want to do it.
Yeah, and you walked, you got back on the path. Everybody's journey is their own journey. But you got to a point where you guys, you built in some breathing room. Things started to work. You could talk to each other. It wasn't always about the job, and talk about what life is like for you guys now.
Yeah, I would say the biggest point in all of this, and the most important key in all of this, is communication. And you have to know how to communicate with your spouse, because like I said before, whenever you go to retire and you retire and punch out, or you leave, or whatever, or you separate from your service, not that the mind doesn't stop because it continues to think about it, but you have to understand and realize who and what's more important to you. And it took a lot for me to just stop and realize she's going to be the one who's going to be with me until I take my last breath, hopefully. And that's being able to communicate and talk about things without apprehension, not being argumentative or trying to be blaming, but just being able to sit down,
listening to each other's heart, actively listening and responding, by validating what you hear one or the other say that's from the heart. And that takes restraining some of your, especially as women, we can be very emotional, and learning how to control those emotions and actively listen and listen and feel his emotion and his feelings, his heart, is very key, without getting wrapped up in your own emotions, about getting defensive or trying to turn blame around or anything like that.
And I'm a passionate person, and whenever I've had many people say, "Well, quit screaming at me." I'm not screaming at you. I'm not yelling at you. I'm just passionate about it, and I'm trying to make a point, and I'm trying to tell you something. Just listen to me. And even our kids were like that, because they were like, "Well, you're yelling at me." I'm going, "No, I'm not yelling at you. I'm just very passionate about that because I don't want anything bad to happen to you."
But that's how they're perceiving it. That's how.
Yes.
And perception, and the optics, and inflection in the voice, body language, it all plays a part. And those are the things we do not learn until it's too late. We don't teach it. And it's the culture, getting back to the culture, we're scratching the surface with all this, but we really have to, our commanders, our chiefs, our commissioners, our mayors have to be able to turn around to our first responders and say, "You're off duty."
Yeah.
Not the 24/7. We're not robots. We're not pawns in your political games. It's time for me to go home and relax. And they don't allow that, even though when they put that smoke and mirror stuff up, they say, "Oh, we're doing the mental health." But you know what? Here's a pager. Make sure you answer it within 3 minutes of it beeping. Nobody should live like that. And when getting back to how women get emotional with a first responder, as a first responder, you're a fixer, male or female. You're a fixer. You got to fix things. Well, women are just wired that way, especially with their spouse, that they have to fix things. They have to fix it. So Lisa, when you bring up the active listening and the restraint it takes to be able to validate and just hear what's going on, that also is a tough thing to do. So it's almost like two magnets coming together.
It is.
You gotta learn the.
It takes a lot of strength, and I think once one stops thinking about yourself, one of the things that Todd and I talk about a lot, and the Bible teaches a lot, love is sacrificial. What Jesus did for us on the cross was sacrificial. And as a husband and wife, your love for one another is sacrificial. And so you have to put yourself aside and your emotions and what you want to be doing or not wanting to do. You just got to put that aside, because this is a person you've committed yourself to love for the rest of your life. And so you listen, and you listen to what's important to them, and what's important to them is important to you, and it should be.
Yeah, and I think too many people forget, especially in law enforcement, what is typically the motto that we see in law enforcement? To protect and what?
Serve.
Serve. So all of a sudden, when we get home, we forgot the service part of it. We forgot to be the servant part of it, because she's the one that I should be the one who I'm serving as her husband. And that goes both ways, though. Both ways have to work. And if they don't work that way, putting the other person first to be that servant to them, to help them, and not to be, because I'm sure there'll be some go, well, see there, he said servant. No, it's not in that manner. You put it in the correct context. But to serve them in a manner that you put them first, and not
being selfless.
Yeah, and being selfless and not being selfish.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure, Todd, you heard it back in the day. 50% of all first responder marriages end up in divorce, right?
Yes.
And in the academy they tell you that. So what is that immediately goes into your mind?
Yes.
This is going to be a practice wife. This is not, this ain't going to work out, and it already sets that ball rolling. So once again, getting back to the culture and the change in dynamics with our first responders is we have to start changing the mindset in the academy. Start keeping them mentally healthy throughout their careers, and setting them up in the very beginning for retirement, and not sideblinding them at the end in the last 3 years that they don't know what's going to happen. We brought it up in the workshop the other day. We set up for our 401ks, our retirement medical insurance, everything we set up for our death benefits, all this stuff, but we never set up for when the music ends and we punch out for that last tour.
Yeah.
We never prepare our first responders for what's going to happen when they get home, how their relationship's going to be, what they should be doing to keep healthy, or they're going to be a statistic and die within 5 years.
I think the biggest point for new officers or people going into law enforcement, regardless of whether it's city, county, state, federal, whatever, do this at the first. Start talking about what you're going to do when you get to that point of retirement, how to set your plan up and have something set there. Now, there's going to be, I'm sure a lot of guys will be like, I'll get there. When I get there, I'll do that. Okay, but at least you're offering it to them to say, hey, this is what you need to do and what you should do. Because I guarantee, even if it helps one person, it's worth it.
Yep.
And the other thing is to make sure that the spouse is involved in this. Because if a spouse is there with that officer when he begins that law enforcement career, she ought to be involved in that too. And then when they get to the point of retirement, bring the spouse in to let her sit through some of these retirement seminars or whatever, to let them know what to expect. And I think we do a very, very poor job of that.
We do.
Absolutely.
I don't think there's many departments out there that even offer that.
Yeah.
That offer the family, retirement plan, bring the spouse in and say, hey, he's not going to be at work 8 hours a day or 12. He's going to be sitting on the couch watching friggin' Judge Judy. And now the house is, you're going to have him in the house burping, farting, doing whatever he wants to do. Your house, the whole house is now up in shambles when, for the last 20 years, like Lisa's been like, well, this is my house. I'm going to cook, I'm going to clean, I'm going to do this, blah, blah, blah. And now the giant is in the house taking up my couch, changing my channels. It's
creating more laundry, right?
Yeah. It's a whole different ball game.
Well, I think too, you keep your mind busy
So, and have adventures, do things that you love to do. And as a wife, I love being part of his world. And thank goodness we have a lot of the same interests. We both love to go fishing. We love to be outdoors.
Sure.
Yes. And so, but that's important. If a wife isn't part of his world, then you're not going to have that connection. You've got to make a point to show an interest in the things that he enjoys. And that's one thing I would encourage spouses to do. And it's especially important after retirement, because you want to encourage them and make it look like, hey, this is an adventure. You know, we can go do this, we can go do that. And to let them know that just because you're retired doesn't mean you're no longer important. You know,
but and that goes both ways.
A husband and a father, a grandfather.
And that goes both ways though, because the little things count. To this day, when we even first started dating, I opened up the car door for her. I opened doors up for her. To this day, I still do that. And the little things, I think, too many times we forget about. And that means a lot to our spouse. The little things do.
And we just try to find ways to connect and enjoy one another. And that's what I encourage other couples to do.
Well, that is fantastic. That finding the way to connect and supporting each other and not waiting until retirement to communicate.
True.
Because it's got to be an open line back and forth for both to share from the beginning. And as last time, this was just as enlightening. I hope that everybody listening, took away these tips, because these are life-saving tips, even if you're not a first responder, but it definitely hits home for first responder families. We're unique because we're first responder families, but we deal with the same stuff with teenagers and kids, and and it's how we just have extra stuff to navigate, because mom or dad is coming home, off a bad call or a bad case, whereas a non-first responder family is just like, wow, the traffic really sucked tonight. Right.
Well, and I'll say, and I don't know how much time we got left, but what we had talked about last time, very briefly, we tried to get something started for those who were retired, for law enforcement officers. And then again, it didn't have to be feds. It was local, county, state, federal, or tribal, all of them. But there didn't seem to be a lot of interest, even though I've heard from a lot of guys, a lot of friends who have friends who are in law enforcement. They call and are like, man, this guy, he called me and he acts like he's just extremely distraught. He doesn't know what to do. There should be a program. And this is one of the things that we tried to get started, and we have not done it yet. Hopefully we can find some interest. But for those who are retired, there ought to be a means like this to be able to sit down and communicate with one another. Talking, I don't care what it is, helps. Talking things out. And even having that opportunity or option for retirees to gather together or to have somebody to go to talk to is extremely important.
Well, on March 26th at the VROC, the Veterans Resource and Outreach Center, we're hosting the first Badge of Honor family workshop.
That's awesome.
It's free to families. Todd and Lisa, you're more than welcome to join us. Come in and sit in. And
Todd and Lisa will be joining us on the StreamYard to give this wonderful pieces of advice to the audience.
But we're gonna see how this pans out, and then we're doing one over in Lindale, Texas, in June. May. So hopefully we can spread that word about, pre-plan for your retirement. You pre-plan everything else, tactical advantages, everything. You pre-plan before you can go into a building. Let's pre-plan how we're going to be when we punch out for the last shot, the last 4.
Absolutely. Well, like I said, if there's anything that we can do to help you guys out with that or with any other project like that, we're definitely available to help out, because it's
same here.
To share. If it helps, again, I'll say it again, if it helps one person, it was all worth it. So,
Well, I'm sure you helped a lot more than one person from the feedback from last show. I know that this feedback is going to be equally as much. And if you are retired, somebody who's retired, Todd, can people reach out? Todd and Lisa, can they reach out to you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And what is the best way for folks to reach out to you?
One of 2 ways. Either, really, I'm pretty accessible. If I don't answer the phone immediately, I will call that person back. I'm not a person that just blows off a phone call. But telephone number of mine is it's 214. Still have a Texas number, 214-415-2810. And then I guess the Viking
your email.
Yeah, the Viking email address is our company, Viking Consultant Group, which is part of the training that we do. Mine is Nunley at Viking Consultant Group, all spelled out.com. And then Lisa has hers too. So
Sam's listening and typing, so it's hard for her to do 2 things at once. So
yes,
that
should be your cue to continue. So
I was just watching you with your head buried in your typewriter there.
Yeah. The keyboard. It's called a keyboard. You just dated yourself.
Keyboard.
Yeah.
But no, this was phenomenal. Again, thank you for sharing all the information that you did. And I think talking about faith is important, because we don't do it as much sometimes as first responders. We just kind of like, that's over here and we're doing this over here. And when it's part of your life, and that's what gets you through, and it saves your marriage, it saves your life. That's your story. And thank you guys so much for sharing your time again with us. We will be in touch as we build to that family workshop on the 26th. So we'll be talking sooner rather than later. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you again, guys.
Yes, thank you very much for this opportunity. We are both very honored that you would even ask us. We appreciate that and the confidence that you guys put in us. And we're just very thankful for you guys for what you're doing too.
We're blessed to know you.
Well,
honored to have you on.
Both ways, my friend.
100%.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll be in touch soon.
Okay, sounds good.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, wow. Incredibly powerful. Todd's super generous. Todd and Lisa both for giving us their information. So you can go ahead and reach out to them directly if you need to, because this is about building a community that heals together. Because eventually, we punch that card, that not going to work in the morning kind of thing, and to have a community that can support each other is so key. And we've got a tremendous community that just keeps growing. If you are, let's say you are just having a bad day, you got off shift, whatever, things suck. It doesn't have to be a crisis moment. Reach out, 1-800-COP line. They are there. It's manned by retired law enforcement. Why retired law enforcement? Because they value your confidentiality and anonymity. So like I said, it's not just for crisis. It's if you're just having a shitty day.
Yep.
Let them be your phone call, your ride home. Easy number to remember, 1-800-COP line. And, John, you and I have been so blessed by the Carry the Load family. I've got their shirt on right here, wearing it tonight. our 501c3 has been named a nonprofit partner. We can't do what we do at Mad Radio and at A Badge of Honor without you guys. Carry the Load is a nationwide organization. They are dedicated to our military families, to our veterans, to our law enforcement, and to our first responders. They've casted a wide net from their very humble beginnings. This will be year number 11. And let me tell you something, if you are in need, the programs are covered for you. Like we continue to grow and vet the folks that we're partnered with. Carry the Load does the same thing. They're not just, like throwing noodles at a wall and sees what sticks. Yeah, we'll go with that one. No. If you would like to give to an incredible organization, go to carrytheload.com and look for our team. It's called A Badge of Honor. Every penny counts because it makes a difference in the lives of so many people. Last year, I think collectively we raised, and remember this was last year was still a pandemic year. We raised over $1 million. It was incredible to see the Carry the Load community come together, and I just feel blessed that A Badge of Honor is now part of that community, and we get to make an even bigger difference. So guys, go to carrytheload.com. Again, look up, you can join our team and fundraise as part of our team, or you can direct donate right there. Again, the team is A Badge of Honor. And I don't know if you guys can see, it's this right here. See where I'm pointing? I'll get them right here. So this is my Spartan here. I want to give a huge shout out to our partners, Travis Manion Foundation. I have had the distinct honor and pleasure of being the DFW chapter lead for a number of years now, and they just honored me with this the Spartan at our last summit. I told them totally unnecessary, but this is for me. I get to see this every day in addition to some special pictures to remind me of why I do what I do, John, why we do what we do at A Badge of Honor. Because the tagline, if not me, then who? That is what this is about. And so, I display it proudly, and yeah, if not us, then who? And abadgeofhonor.com, you are not alone. You are not alone at all. Reach out. We are here. We have got the 26th First Responder Family Wellness and Resiliency at the Veterans Resource and Outreach Center in Rowlett, Texas. Go to abadgeofhonor.com, click on events, got a calendar there, lays out everything. Still working on it all the way through May. You can register online right there. You do need tickets to come to the workshop. The tickets for the family, the first responder family wellness and resiliency, those are free. Okay. The family events are free, 13 and up. But you gotta have a registration. You gotta be registered for that. So visit abadgeofhonor.com. Again, I can't thank enough Todd and Lisa for sharing what they did, for coming back on and really being real with first responder family and what it looks like. Oh, John, when you say when the music stops, it's not pretty. But because of people like them, it doesn't have to be messy, because we learn, right? And the more we learn, the more we can do to keep us moving forward instead of going off the path, off the rails. So to all of the first responders out there, to all of families, thank you so much for what you do. Thank you for keeping us safe at home. Thank you for serving as a family. to make a difference in the lives of your communities around the United States. And to all of our military and veterans, thank you for doing what you do overseas to protect our home front here. And thank you for putting your life on the line and putting yourself in harm's way to give us the freedom so that John and I get to keep doing what we're doing here and hopefully not get taken off of social media. John, take us home.
All right. First off, I just want to thank all the members of the Lindale Police Department for a phenomenal workshop. Thank you to the troopers that did show up as well. Can't wait to see you guys again. Our prayers go out to everybody in the Ukraine who are battling tonight. Remember, we have first responders in the midst of this war. If anybody has ever seen, if everybody's watching the news, in the midst of this war, we see firefighters battling blazes, going into buildings and rescuing people. They are on the front lines of this war. So please keep all of our first responders in the Ukraine in your prayers. And we stand with you, support you, and we hope this war ends soon. Once again, thank you, Todd and Lisa. We've had many families on here, Eric and Meg, and we're going to continue with the family aspect of this until we can heal as many as we can. So remember, mark your calendars for March 26th. Check out a Badge of Honor for all the upcoming events and workshops. We are growing. Sam, thank you for everything you've done for keeping this all together. I want to thank our other partners, Jeff Freeman and John Edmondson, our clinician, who work diligently with us behind the scenes and at the workshops. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you in a few weeks, not next week, the week after.
Right. The 16th. The 16th. We'll be back on the 16th with you all.
Yep. But we're available 24/7. So if you need us, give us a shout. Until then, stay blessed.
Thanks,
Good night,
everybody.
Sarah.
Good night.